And so the cycle keeps going. It's bigger and bigger, more cash flow, more acquisitions. Hi everyone, JJ here. Welcome. Well, Constellation Software has been a compounding beast over the last couple of decades. The question is, can it continue to do that even though it's getting bigger and bigger? We're going to dive a little bit deeper. I've done a few videos on Constellation Software and I'll do more. It's turning into a regular thing, so we'll investigate further. Let's get into it. Now, in some ways, Constellation Software is similar to that legendary serial acquirer company, Berkshire Hathaway, with Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Some people don't think of Berkshire as that way, but it is, and it's a huge company. So clearly, companies that are serial acquirers like Constellation Software can get to be mega cap companies. Can Constellation continue to do that? And what's the secret? There are similarities between Berkshire Hathaway and Constellation, definitely, and we'll go into some of those. Now, one of the similarities with Berkshire is they take a very hands-off approach. It's a decentralized model, just like Berkshire Hathaway. And they incentivize managers to perform well, to have high returns on capital, which both of these companies have been able to achieve. Berkshire over a much longer period, of course, but can Constellation do that? They've done that in the past, definitely. You can see the similarity there that Mark Leonard, the head of Constellation, he's been able to instill in Constellation Software as a company and probably will going forward. And so this decentralized model is what they have been doing, similar to Berkshire Hathaway. Now, once Constellation Software acquires a business, and they've acquired hundreds, literally hundreds of businesses at this point, they leave the managers operating those businesses alone to run them as they see fit individually, but they also make them accountable for how they run them and the results that they get. Now, if the managers of these individual businesses are able to increase cash flow margins, then they'll get a bonus. So they're incentivized to do well and they get rewarded for doing well. Now, the cash flows for the business that are increasing get fed up to the capital allocators, including Mark Leonard, to go out and buy more businesses, to acquire more businesses. And so the cycle keeps going. It's bigger and bigger. Serial acquirer, which continues to get bigger based on these acquisitions, more cash flow, more acquisitions, and that's the way that it's been for more than 2 decades, and it's worked out very well. Just like Berkshire Hathaway, really. One of the differences with Berkshire, of course, is that Constellation Software buys vertical market software companies, VMS companies. So they're buying small software companies in verticals and niches, and that's what they've done hundreds and hundreds of times. So it's a very specific kind of business. They know how to do it. They know how they run, and their expertise has grown over time. Where Berkshire Hathaway, as Warren Buffett has said, it's like taking a snapshot across of America, of American business. They have different types of businesses. They're looking for wonderful companies across industries, as long as they understand the company, understand the industry. But Constellation Software is focused on this one particular area. Now, at first, we might not think there's enough companies that they could buy, enough good companies that they could buy to grow to a mega cap company. But in actual fact, there are tens of thousands of software companies that Constellation Software tracks over time that are possible acquisition targets in the future. They just track the whole industry. So there's actually quite a big scope to grow a lot more. And having said that, they could branch out into other areas that perhaps Mark Leonard understands or one of the other capital allocators understands. So even if they run out of acquisition targets, they could pivot a little bit slowly to other areas. So there's tons of scope to keep going and grow bigger, you would think. And Mark Leonard was a venture capitalist to begin with, so you'd think that he could go into different areas if they wanted to, and of course go bigger. They have been making some bigger acquisitions. Most of them have been very small, in the millions, in the single digit millions even, but they have been growing bigger. I think their biggest acquisition to date is over $700 million, so they are thinking bigger. In order to get bigger, Warren Buffett has said that the size of the wallet makes the growth more difficult. So if you've got billions of dollars to work with, it's hard to grow at a compounding rate, say around 20%. The bigger the wallet is, the opportunities to invest are smaller. When you think of Berkshire Hathaway, they've really got a small group of companies, a small pool of companies that they can invest in. It has to be in the tens of billions to move the needle there. And Warren Buffett has been recently buying in Japan, looking there because that market's been, as he sees, undervalued since the bubble in 1990 when it burst. That it's been down for a long time. So he's seen that as a good place to look for these mega companies. In the US, maybe there's only 30 or 40 companies that they could really look at to move the needle. And in recent years, of course, that has been Apple, which was an over a $30 billion purchase, and that's done very well. But the opportunities are small compared to Constellation Software, where they still are buying the smaller companies, very small companies, but also there's opportunity to go a little bit bigger as well in the future now that their market cap is a large cap. So as cash flows grow and grow, they have to be able to deploy more and more money for acquisitions, and obviously they need to buy bigger companies, and they've said they're willing to do that over time to increase the deal size, and they will have to do that. Otherwise, they'd be buying so many small companies over time that it probably would be a bit of a bureaucratic nightmare. Even though that they have this model that could take care of it, it makes sense that they'd buy bigger companies. They've just got to find the right deals and be able to deal with those bigger companies and bigger acquisitions all the time. Now, if you're getting value out of this Constellation Software episode so far, I really appreciate it if you hit that like button to help the algorithm to spread it to more people, because of course that's what we want. Thanks. So in terms of revenues, about 10% of their revenue comes from Canada, where they're based, where they started, and 50% comes from the US. So mostly from that North American market in general, and Europe is about 30%. And they've had that spin-off Topicus, which I've made a video about before, which is the same business model but in Europe. And Europe is a big market, so that's the plan there. Topicus has been doing well. The share price has been doing well. It hasn't been public for that long so far, so we'll have to see, but it seems to be going well so far. And they have 10% in other countries. So there's this possibility to have more spin-offs in the future. They've got another spin-off, of course, apart from Topicus. That's one way that they could keep this decentralized model, is have a number of spin-offs that grow in different areas, different parts of the world, and continue to grow that way and not have it turn into a bureaucratic nightmare. Now let's turn to that successful culture of the company for a minute, which is similar to Berkshire Hathaway again. There's a lot of independence, as we've talked about, and they give their managers a lot of autonomy. So, we've heard stories of Berkshire Hathaway with Warren Buffett having his calendar pretty much free every day to read and study different businesses, to make those acquisitions. And those managers from the businesses just are independent to run them. So if there's a problem, then maybe that'll be dealt with if they need help with it. But generally, Warren Buffett has a lot of time to himself, and other CEOs of companies look at him and say, how does he do this? How on earth does he have so much time just to sit and read? And it's because of this decentralized autonomous model like Constellation Software has as well. The culture of the company, very important. It's been very successful for Berkshire Hathaway. A lot of trust for the managers and a lot of autonomy. When they acquire companies, they don't go out and tell each business how it's supposed to be run. If they need help, they can get it, some coaching, but they just leave their businesses alone. He picks good teams with good people, small teams he says he likes, to run the businesses as they see fit and incentivize them to produce good results. That's the model, and that's the model that's worked very well. Now, I've started the Art of Value Patreon community for just about the price of a cup of coffee each month. I'm providing a growing number of exclusive videos, extended videos, ad-free, of course, some blog posts about stocks I own, stocks I'm researching, my thoughts on the market and what's going on. So I'd love to see you over there. I'll put a link in the description. In Mark Leonard's letters, which are really worth reading, he says that the rules are few and trust and communication are high, and the focus tends to be on how to increase the size of the pie and not how the pie gets divided up. That's how I remember my favorite venture investments when I was a venture capitalist, he says, and it's how I remember many of the early Constellation Software acquisitions. Now, it's very clear from Mark Leonard's letters that he thinks a lot about the business, the structure of the business, how it should be run, how it should be structured, just like Warren Buffett has done a lot of thinking about this. Mark Leonard has said this: the larger a business gets, the more difficult it becomes to manage, and the more policies, procedures, systems, rules, and regulations are generated to handle that growing complexity. Talented people get frustrated, innovation suffers, and the focus shifts from customers and markets to internal communication, cost control, and rule enforcement. The quirky but talented rarely survive in this environment. So clearly he's thought a lot about how to grow, how to scale this business up and continue to do so, hopefully to compound that as the business grows, gets more complex. And I'm sure he studied Berkshire Hathaway because that is a huge business. And as I said, Buffett can spend his days really how he pleases for most of the time. And I'm sure that he's thought about how to scale this business up to a mega size, dealing with this complexity and bureaucracy that tends to happen in these large corporations. So that's a little bit more about Constellation Software, how they're structured, how the business model works, and how it could grow to be a mega business from where it is now, which is a large cap, and they've taken a couple of decades to get there, compounding at a very high rate. Can they continue to do that? Let me know in the comments. Do you think they'll be able to go on and do that? Do you think it can go on to be like Berkshire Hathaway? A huge amount of compounding and to be one of the biggest companies in the world. Now, if you're watching this video on YouTube, I'm going to put a link here to one of my previous episodes about Constellation Software, and I'll also put a link to an episode of what the YouTube algorithm thinks that you in particular should watch next based on your history. So go and see that now. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching or listening.